Good evening and welcome to In the World of Winooski. I'm Winooski Mayor Seth Leonard. Happy you can join us. And this is a live version on September the 25th, 2018. And you can also call in today's show at 802-862-3966. Again, that's 802-862-3966 if you've got questions. We're going to do a lot of city updates today as we turn into fall, and remind folks that we're nearing the election season, so it's a great time to start paying attention to issues and engaging in things, and encourage you to keep up that level of engagement, questioning, and learning as we move into the budget season, into the winter as well. So today we're going to cover a number of big things that have unfolded over the past couple months in the city. First off, we want to make sure that you're staying up to date on the big projects that people have voted in via bond votes in the last few months, namely the Main Street reconstruction and also the Myers Memorial Pool revitalization project. So we'll be doing quick updates on both of those items today and let you know where those things stand, as we've promised to try to keep folks engaged as you come into budget season and have an idea of where those projects are falling in terms of financing opportunities and options, and how you can help, again, continue to provide feedback to City Council and the city government on how we can best execute those projects for you in the community. We're also going to do an update on another issue that folks have paid a lot of attention to, I think, in our community, which is all resident voting. I'll talk about the timeline that unfolded in regards to considering that issue and what may lie ahead in terms of process following the most recent vote to put the issue on a slightly different time track than was initially proposed. And then I also want to alert folks about a housing series that's coming up in town. And again, a couple shows ago, I didn't quite get into some of the details of the work that was being done by the Housing Commission. I want to make sure folks are aware of those conversations taking place as we've changed zoning over the past few years, allowed for additional opportunities for development to take place in the community. We also feel like it's really important to ensure that we've got good, strong housing policy in place as well that'll help the community ensure that we know who we are and what we look like in terms of the capacity to continue to support our diversity through a rich and diverse housing stock as well. First off, I want to start tonight by just going through a few big updates in the city. For folks who haven't followed, Winooski received a somber announcement from one of our longest standing public servants, and that's over 50 years. Clem Bissonette served the city of Winooski in a number of different capacities, from city councilor to incredibly involved citizen, mayor, and most recently in the House of Representatives for the state of Vermont. Can't say enough about the dedication Clem's been known for through the years. He's given so much to the city of Winooski, steered the city through some very challenging times, but also some exciting times. Oversaw the passage and creation of the state's largest redevelopment project in history in the downtown, and the creation of the TIF district, or the Tax Increment Finance District. So as Clem signs off from Montpelier and moves on to the next chapter of his life, please take a moment, send him a message, thank him for all the work that he's done, because it's folks like Clem who have dedicated themselves so many years to the city of Winooski that puts us in the exciting place we are, and we wouldn't be where we are without Clem and all of his dedication through the years. So from the bottom of my heart, I know much of the community, Clem, thanks for all that you've done through the years, and we look forward to seeing what's next for you and your family and life. And hopefully you maybe get a little bit more downtime now. So thanks to Clem Bissonette. You can also watch over the next couple weeks. I think there's going to be a couple write-in candidates potentially for that seat, or at least one write-in candidate. So please continue to keep track of what's going on there as we approach the November elections. One thing that's obviously very pervasive in Winooski this time of year is the almighty pumpkins, right? So as we approach the fall season, one of Winooski's richest traditions is the Festival of Pumpkins. And we're very happy to say Seasons Greeting is back doing that event again. I really want to urge folks that is a volunteer-driven event, and it's a volunteer-driven event by residents who have been doing it a long time and have put a lot into that event. And you know, they'll be quick to tell you it's always in need of new energy and new blood that hasn't maybe put their hands on the festival before. So encourage folks to reach out. You can reach out to me even if you like at mayor@winooskivt.org. Happy to put you in touch with the folks who organize that event. That is a community-powered event that takes a lot of volunteer time and effort, and we are constantly in need of extra hands, good backs for folks who don't mind cleaning, scrubbing, and helping with the pumpkins. In addition to the Pumpkin Festival, the Festival of Pumpkins that will again be held in the Circulator Park, we will also have all the Companions event, the Kids Day, and Haunted Winooski, all taking place over that weekend directly before Halloween weekend. So or Halloween Day. So you will see a number of announcements coming out from the city, but recognize that once again it'll be downtown, and once again it's going to combine all those various events. So Haunted Winooski is back on, and we look forward to a great event and a really exciting season that I think Winooski's come to own in the area. I want to give shout outs to several and maybe plant a seed. We've had several residents who have started block parties in their neighborhood, and we're more than happy to support this as a city. And I want to acknowledge our police department and their crew under Chief Hebert, who've gone out and done a lot of the cooking for these. We have a little budget that we put aside to do those types of outreach events. So if you and your neighbors think a block party would be a good idea, I really encourage you to reach out to the city again, visit winooskivt.org, and let us know what street you would be interested in potentially closing down or having the police come. We set up a bouncy house on Hickok Street's coming up soon, and we've done it on West Street for a number of years. So great opportunity to engage your neighbors, create a cool environment for some great exchanges to take place, and the city's really happy to support that type of activity. So hope folks out in their community will feel empowered to reach out to us, set something like that up with your neighbors, really encourage that, and something we've seen take hold. I want to address another kind of sticky political issue that popped up recently, and that's the recent letter from the ACL that the city received in regards to our panhandling ordinance. Years ago, the city did put in a panhandling ordinance that asked folks not to panhandle aggressively. The ACLU decided to flag that as potentially a policy that needed to be addressed from their perspective. Want to update folks that council did take the action of putting an ordinance change into motion to address that issue, to ensure that we are providing a good environment for our community. In terms of what residents will experience, operationally we came to the conclusion that it really had no impact, that it was not really being utilized to certainly discriminate against anybody, but was really just a backbone for addressing when folks maybe we're approaching folks in regards to community members in regards to potential donations to different causes, but wasn't being used in any kind of threatening manner. But I am pleased to report that we have taken about addressing that ordinance issue, and look forward to having an update for folks as we round the corner on updating that ordinance. We want to update you too that in March you voted to help us make pretty significant upgrades to our wastewater treatment plant. We'll let you know that construction's underway. It's not one of those big exciting announcements that something's done, but we are in the process of beginning that headworks project that will help screen materials as they come into the wastewater treatment plant and elongate the life of that plant. So kind of in the weeds municipal things there, but a big deal for the community. We also set the FY20 budget schedule in the last council meeting. So again, this is a great opportunity in December and January to make sure that you're addressing council about what your priorities are, what you think we should be focusing on financially, anything that you want to flag as a concern or want more information about. It's challenging when we get to the first week in March and people express questions or concerns, because at that point in time we've set the budget, we've put it forward. So really encourage you to try to interject into that, interject your thoughts, opinions, and concerns as far in advance as you can. And that can be as simple as going to the city website and sharing a few brief sentences with city councilors via an email. But again, winooskivt.org, you can find all of our contact information, and be sure to reach out, share your thoughts about the budget as we approach that season. We're going to do it in a very similar fashion this year, where we take a department or area of focus, for example, public safety, where we'll address the fire department, the police departments, all, and the Alternative Justice Center, all in one meeting. So we'll have sort of topic areas that we'll discuss, and very similarly we'll move to administration, where we'll talk about the city manager's office, the clerk's office. So we do that round robin, spend one meeting focusing on an issue, but you can come to any meeting and weigh in, and we meet every week in January, and we'll probably actually also have an extra meeting in January leading up to approving a budget proposal in January. And we're going to talk in just a second and really get into, you know, a bit more of an update on where the Pool and Main Street issue are, but this is also where those projects are really going to come to a head, so to speak, in that we're working over the next couple months to finalize the exact finance model that's going to be proposed to you in terms of a tax rate and what increase or impact they may have, not just for this year, but for subsequent years as well. So we want to share that with the public, make sure you understand as you walk into those polls what you're voting on and voting for. And then I just want to bring up one more item, that when you do go to the polls this year, you will be voting almost 2 years to the day in advance of our 100th anniversary in the city of Winooski. And over the next couple months, we're going to start engaging folks in regards to a legacy campaign to really ensure that we celebrate that 100-year anniversary properly, or you might call it the 100-year anniversary of our independence from Colchester. But that's something that's forthcoming, but want to make that known, that when you see that seal, which shows up sometimes behind me, and you'll see on my PowerPoint in a moment, we've got that 1922 date, and we're getting very close to that. So we'll have a 2-year anniversary wind up where we'll be working to have a year-long celebration to kick off, because we'll be just 3 short years away. So now, let's get into the main crux of our content today, which again, we're going to swing back and talk about a potential charter change that folks will hear more about over the coming months, and also talk a little bit about those project updates that I want to provide. So first off, I wanted to update folks on all resident voting and an issue that I think is really important to a lot of members of our community. I think we all recognize that Winooski is the most diverse community by a great deal in the state of Vermont. Over 16% of our population was not born in the United States. In many cases, that indicates that have either refugee status or are in the process of going through the citizenship, the steps to citizenship. As such, we have a number of residents that live in our community who are not able to vote in elections, are not able to vote on things like whether or not we should establish a pool in our community, whether we should spend money and invest in revitalizing Main Street, whether or not you know, the municipal language actually also extends to the school, whether the school budgets, to be able to vote on those as well. So a few years ago, we established a charter committee, and this was flagged as a major issue for Winooski that needed to be addressed, and with a public process, that we needed to look at whether or not we should redefine what a qualified voter looks like. Earlier this fall, I'll say late summer, in August, we voted on a timeline to pursue and investigate whether we should put it on the ballot for a potential charter change commitment, and that would have been up for a vote in November. To change the definition of voter in Winooski also means that we have to update our city charter. The charter is really the document that founds the community, outlays what our government looks like. It talks about how we can raise money, spend money, departmental creation, and really sets forth the powers that the city have, the residents have, and the staff have in a very general way. It also defines how our politic works, including who is a qualified voter. That same charter is actually also relied upon by the school, which their charter refers back to it in terms of who is a qualified voter. So changing a charter includes not just a vote of our residents, which we would need to move the issue forward, but would also include the legislator, a legislative committee passing that item. During the exploration process of potentially putting on the November ballot, I would just summarize that there were a number of items and issues that were flagged that I think the majority of council felt were needed some more time to be worked through. And in addition to that, wanted to give the community a bit more time to process the issue and have those thoughtful community conversations and engagement and outreach. So we essentially hit pause on the issue for right now, decided not to put it on the November ballot, but that does not mean that this issue is going to the background. We will be discussing it again in our first meeting in October. And bringing this item back to say what is a reasonable timeline, what do we think we can, how quickly we can move forward on an item like this that is also considerate of all those complexities that we ran into in trying to potentially put it on the November ballot. So this is an item that we're still very much looking for people's in the community's input on and feedback. And it's also an item that I think we would really appreciate you taking time to engage your neighbors about and have a conversation with people in the community who it might affect, who maybe would gain the right and opportunity to vote, who might not otherwise. So that's where the issue stands for right now. I think it's a to be continued, but want to make that really clear for folks so there's not confusion as to whether it will be or will not be on the November ballot. It will not be right now by City Council action. So that's where that's being left at the moment. So one thing you will find on a ballot in March is a budget that reflects debt service payment on two important projects. The first is Meyer's Memorial Pool, and the second being the revitalization of Main Street. So as a reminder of folks, if I could go back to this slide, we initially looked at a couple different proposals in regards to the pool. We had the original proposal, which was the sort of all-in, what we think the community wants in terms of a pool with all features, all capabilities, all capacity, and that came in at $3.9 million. Then we had a $3.5 million option that was sort of value engineered, meaning there were some components of the pool that were taken out. I wouldn't go so far as to call them luxury items, but maybe additions that weren't absolutely critical to the operation of the pool. And then we had the reduced tax impact proposal, which was the baseline, that $3.29 million proposal. In the end, Council elected to send, a couple of meetings ago, elected to send staff forward with the scaled down proposal, which is that reduced tax proposal. And in addition to going with that reduced tax proposal, we opened the door for a very set amount of funds to be raised by the pool committee. So the value engineered proposal moving forward with the pool committee seeking out, the exact number doesn't come to mind, but $300,000 plus in terms of fundraising that they would be pursuing to provide the additional components related to the features that they thought were important during their scope and study. So again, a lot of thought and community energy went into this process, and a lot of people gave feedback as to what was important to them. And at the end of the day, in balancing the two projects, we've really kept the pool and Main Street sort of separate for quite a while in terms of conversations. But given now that they're both going to be impacting the same budget, felt like it was important not to bifurcate those two conversations and start really blending them together in a concept that the same taxpayer is going to be asked to pay for both projects, right? So in light of that, we elected to start with the scaled back pool and said, let's leave a window then for fundraising to take place that could perhaps up the pool. And I want to point out that we are talking, not the reduced tax impact proposal, but the value engineered proposal that still left enough of those components there that ensured the longevity of the pool would be operational. So we passed that news along to the fundraising committee. We look forward to seeing those efforts and activities. I know there are several members of council who are going to be engaged in that. But again, if you need connection to the fundraising opportunities, there's been postings on Front Porch Forum. Reach out to the city. We'll be happy to help be the spoken hub to get you in contact with those folks. It's going to take more than bake sales to get the amount of funds that are being sought there. So really looking for creative ideas to help raise some money to put some of those components in there that we think would be helpful, but from a baseline perspective, decided not to put in right away in the initial proposal. And then we also talked about the potential of scaling Main Street. So as a reminder, Main Street includes a number of different components to the work, right? It had utility upgrades, on-street parking, stormwater infrastructure, bike path, expanded pedestrian accommodation, streetscape amenities. So there were a number of layers to that project from a component perspective. And it it span the entire length of Main Street. So in our instruction back, again, to staff on the financing, we've asked for this kind of somewhat similar to the pool. We've said, what would it look like to stage this project? What would it look like to either stage it from a sectioning standpoint or on a work standpoint, maybe doing different layers of the work? So we are waiting to hear back final numbers and a proposal on what that might look like. And essentially, again, what we're talking about is potentially elongating the length of the project, but doing it in a way that from a tax impact standpoint is a bit more sustainable on incremental increases versus asking for everything up front. You know, when we look at just natural increases of cost to the city, you know, we're at about 4% or 4 cents on the tax rate of just naturally incurred costs to do the same business that we did last year. And that's things like health insurance, COLA, cost of goods just increasing. So we want to be mindful that if we're also including capital projects that include another 2%, 4%, and we're not quoting percentages just yet, we'll be getting there very soon, that we're taking that into account, that the taxpayer is going to get, you know, a bill that says 4 to 6%, even if we do this in the most scaled back manner. So with that, recognize that initially if we went all in, full speed on both projects, we were probably looking at 18+% over the first 2 years in terms of the impact on the tax rate, which I think, you know, while there was no formal vote in terms of the exact funding methods that we're going to end up using or exact funding schedule that we're going to end up using, I think everybody felt on council, I think it's reflective to say that that was a hard increase to pass along to taxpayers. So we are looking at the fact that both Main Street and Myers Pool bonds were passed by voters. So we are also moving forward as a result of that work and the redevelopment of Main Street on also coming up with housing parameters, which I'll speak about here now. But just to wrap up that conversation on Myers Memorial Pool and Main Street, please just recognize that, you know, if you were in favor of those projects, the votes that got us started were the bond votes. That gave us authorization to take out debt. Really, the next votes that occur on this is, number one, we'll be asking taxpayers to service that debt with an additional burden on the tax rate. That's going to be a reality. So you'll hear us talk about the budget this year, and we'll talk about what portion of that budget is going towards addressing the debt to ensure that those projects happen. But in addition to that, too, we also have auxiliary items like the creation of a 1% sales tax, which Winooski has never had, but most surrounding communities actually do. So we are looking at implementing that as part of how we're going to fund the debt on Main Street, how we're going to service that debt. We recognize that with the creation of infrastructure on Main Street, we also are increasing the opportunity that properties get redeveloped and that there be additional investment in Winooski. We're in an exciting time where people do want to build here. They do want to open businesses here. People do want to live in our community. And as such, that demand has created activity. And part of the balancing act with that is ensuring, yes, we love that new activity, we love those new opportunities in the community, but we also want to ensure that we're remaining affordable. So we put together a housing commission work, which I briefed through these goals last time in terms of encouraging the development of affordable housing opportunities for a broad range of income levels, fostering a mix of housing types to serve the needs of different family compositions, household types, promoting quality housing that's safe. And we asked that goals be developed by that group. And that group came back with very prescribed goals, with 15% of new units serving under 80% of the area median income. Making sure that we have tools available to reach balancing goals is that next discussion, which I'm going to bring up next, and the proposals that are coming forward in the next few months. And what we're looking at from a policy perspective, there are three key ones that I think you're going to hear quite a bit about prior to the end of this calendar year. The first is a replacement ordinance that would require replacement of housing units if redevelopment of property occurs where there are current residential units. So basically, if you were to tear down a building that had 10 housing units in there, a replacement ordinance might say, hey, you need to build at least 10 units in the property as you redevelop it. There's also a housing trust fund component to the policy mix that's being discussed. A housing trust fund can be used by the city to inject funds into types of deals that maybe create affordable housing opportunities that might otherwise have a hard financial time. And then inclusionary zoning, which might guide what type of development takes place and what type of incomes the development serves in the units that are available. So most importantly today, I want to point out that there's a number of important housing sessions coming up for the community. We've posted these, and the first one occurred last night, or the 24th of September, which was we looked at the replacement ordinance and trust fund items initially. The second one is Tuesday, October the 9th from 6 to 8 p.m. And keep note, I'm pretty sure that's going to be held at the community center. It might be at City Hall, but Tuesday the 9th of 2018 between 6 and 8 p.m. they're going to look at the broader impact of inclusionary zoning, replacement ordinances, and how we might balance those policies. And then finally, the Housing Commission on the 22nd of October from 6 to 8 is also going to have a meeting on those same topics again. So we're going to continue to focus speakers on informing our community about these policies as we consider them and consider putting them in place as a reaction to some of the investment we're making in infrastructure that we know might spur additional development. Lots to keep track of. Hope folks stay engaged. Use that website that the city has to reach us, ask questions, go to the primary resources on some of these really complex issues. Great to talk to your neighbors, but remember we have professional city staff and counselors who spend a lot of time who are ready to help answer any questions you might have about these or other projects in the city. Thanks very much for joining us for another session of In the World of Winooski. I'm Mayor Seth Leonard. We'll look forward to seeing you for the next show.